poem by Dylan Thomas called Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night, which he wrote for his dying father. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had no forked lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight and learned too late they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
Yeah, so it's such a great poem. And, well, Bill Pullman is the master of the pause. I mean, he will pause. It's a different kind of pause than, the guy from Star Trek, but he's master of the pause. When we're talking about rage against the dying of the light, that's a universal element to who we are, because if all we have is hope in this world, then we of all men are most to be pitied, right? That's 1 Corinthians 15. Because if there's no life after this one, it's just a finger in the face of life if you're raging against the dying of the light, which is kind of fun, I guess. It's kind of cool, but there's this part of us that wants to fight against the entropy that consumes everything around us, and old age and all of those things that we have to deal with. We want to rage against it. But that's the beauty of the gospel, is that we actually do get to rage against it. We actually do have the opportunity to do more than just stick up, a bird in the face of death. We get to literally say, death, where is your sting? Where is your strength? Death is done. Christ is going to place all things under his feet. And the last enemy to be beaten is death. And that's that entropy that we all deal with. It's so hopeless. I mean, think about it. We do so much just to eat and stay alive, and we're going to die anyway. I mean, it seems so helpless. But God says, hey, guess what? If you seek first the kingdom, I'm going to take care of your just basic survival. I'll take care of it. I got you. Now you get to think about the things that matter. Now you get to think about the things of purpose and change and doing what's right. And now you get to think about the kingdom, because I've got all this other stuff. You don't have to worry about it. And I think that's what I hear in that poem, is that universal cry of humanity against this hopelessness. And it's like, well, at least I'm going to go down fighting. And what's amazing about God is he's like, no, in the gospel, that can actually matter more than just it's a nice poem. It can actually matter eternally. Like you can go, not just go down fighting, but you can live on fighting. Like now you are fighting against that entropy, and you get reward for fighting against the entropy. You get noticed by God for fighting against death and fighting for what is good and fighting for life in the midst of what is hopeless. And at least that's what I get from all that.
And each line or each verse, it talked about a different type of man. So you've got wise men, good men, wild men, grave men. And I think it's easy to look at, we spent our podcast talking about Independence Day. We talked about how crisis reveals who we are. It reveals who's important, and it's all based on how we respond. So how are we going to respond? And that's when death, because what in this world is more powerful, more condemning? What do we as a culture and as a human as he said, mankind as the human race, what do we fight against but death?
Right.
Whether it's our own death, the death of our family, and it just the idea that blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Like this idea that what was dead can come to life. Like you think of grave eyes, you think of the old man who's sort of hunched over. There's the bleary eyes that don't have a lot of spark, not a lot of life. But as you mentioned, what comes and what brings us life, even to those men who are on the brink of death. And I think that many men are there already. They could be in their 20s, but they're basically dead inside because they're just like, I don't know what I'm living for. Life doesn't have a lot of meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's the point? I'm going to Netflix and chill. I'm going to play video games. I'm going to go drinking with my buddies. Life is found by how many women I can have sex with. They find their life in things that are not life.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do, that gives you the strength and the power to rage against the coming of the dying of the light, so that we don't go gentle. We're like, wait, no, this is who I am. I am the light. So how can the night come when the light is still here?
Mm-hmm.
And the light is in us, as you mentioned on the podcast, the light is in us like the treasure in earthen pots.
Yeah.
And it breaks, and there's light has no, you can't do anything but shine. Like, it's like, you have one job, shine. And so in this world of darkness and crisis and conflict, and in a conflict and in when times are darkest is when the light needs to shine the brightest.
That's right.
So thanks for this addendum. If you're watching on YouTube, hop over to our website, menatthemovies.com, or find the full podcast on Spotify, Google Play, or Apple Pods, or wherever you get your podcasts. I don't know. So see you next time.